You know what this is like? You know, like being in front of the Supreme Court. With this.
Regular experience for you?
Okay, I surrender. What am I going to do? I didn't build this. Nice to see you guys. I'm glad to be here. Better than last night. You don't know that thunder and lightning and a tornado. We managed to go around it, but it was like, oh man, it was all getting lit up. It was fun. And I'm not a great flyer anyway. I'm about a Bloody Mary for every 500 miles. Oh, I'm sorry. This is...
You guys remember, I just told you a few seconds ago, I'm Monica S. Kubler, Managing Editor of Rue Morgue. Thank you all for your patience.
Are you responsible for that beautiful review of my book? I want to thank somebody. It was a great review, by the way.
Obviously, the man sitting beside me needs no introduction at all. And I think you'll be surprised to know that about 1/3 of these folks were here in your Q&A last year.
Really?
Yeah. They're back for repeat engagement.
I'm on a book tour, and this is never, Mr. Gupta has never had a guy back the next year, but I had an excuse. I have my book is out, my biography. Called Not Bad for a Human. You go online, they're selling it on Kindle, Nook, and iPad, so but it's pretty cool. I mean, the fact that it's out there.
So you're promoting your book. We'll do about 15 to 20 minutes. We'll talk about the book.
Yes.
And then, this show's really for all these fans out here. So after that, we'll just open it up and let them talk about whatever they'd like to talk about.
Can I ask first, has anybody in this audience read the book yet?
Well, you've all got homework now, and you know exactly what that homework is.
The reason I was saying that is because then they could ask the questions because they've read it and they know what to ask, Smart, I'm smart. If I try to describe what the book is about, I want to keep away from making it sound like a sales pitch, but what it really is about is, at a point in my life when I was pretty young, I could have ended up in prison because I got picked up by a guy who had stolen a car, and he asked me to drive, naturally, and a cop chased us. And this cop, I rolled the car over a lot of times, and then we both ended up climbing out a different window in the car. And as I ran toward a building, running away from the cops, they were shooting at me, so the building in front of me, the bullets were hitting that building. They missed me, obviously. But that was when I was really young. I'd just gotten out of the service and I was 17. And the miracle, I spent 4 months in jail waiting to go to trial for stealing that car. And I didn't steal it, but I did drive it. But anyway, but the point I'm trying to make is the judge looked at me and I didn't even shave back when I was 17. He said, I'm not going to send you to Rayford Penitentiary, because if he had, I wouldn't be sitting here now. My life would have been completely changed. They called it driving without the owner's consent. Because fortunate for me, the guy had stolen a Hertz rent-a-car. Very fortunate. But anyway, it's funny about in life how you take one road and this happens, you take another road and then something else happens. And fortunately, after 4 months, they said, go home, but don't ever come back to Florida. And I said, you bet, I won't be back. But anyway, my career in acting really came out of my artwork, because I used to paint murals and stuff. I was always obsessed on the visual arts. And then when I got into acting, is that hard to listen to? Is there like, yeah, there is, isn't there? Can you hear me if I don't use this? No. No, okay, never mind. But anyway, the point is that there was a road better followed than the one I was on as a rowdy kid. And the arts have given me a life, a real life. I mean, and the people I've worked with have been these incredible mentors in all different levels, you know, the talented people that I started working with. So that's what the book is about. It's about becoming, the title is Not Bad for Human. And I used it because it's the last line of Aliens, but I also used it because it made me more of a human. The arts, and especially acting. So that's my description of the book. I hope it's interesting enough for you to read it.
So I have a question about the book. I'm sure as anyone who was at this panel last year will attest, you're, first of all, an excellent storyteller, but secondly, you've had such an expansive career and such an incredible life. How did you decide what parts of your story made it into the book and what parts to omit from it?
If I had written a book with every detail of my existence, Spider-Man! Hey, Spider-Man! Bye! The guy has both hands bandaged. I want to... It's gone. What was that question? Oh, what goes in the book, yeah. If I'd written the book with all the details of my life that I thought was interesting, it would have been 900 pages. Nobody wants to read that book. Nobody wants 900 pages of, you know, there are certain epiphanies that happen in your life. I'm using a lot of P's, aren't I? Epiphany. All right, anyway. And the things that I could be really truthful about, I have no access to grind because all the things that have gone on in my life I'm grateful for. So I have an attitude of gratitude, which is much better for me, you know, rather than obsessing on things that didn't work out, life didn't work out the way I thought it should. Just take it as it comes. So, you know, like I'm not in The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which I love the books, and I love the movie, the 3 movies that were made. And when I found out they were doing it, I went down there and they said, well, you're not old enough. I've been rejected for a lot of reasons, but that's not one of them. Next.
You co-wrote the book with Joseph Madry. How did the two of you split up the writing chores? How did your co-authorship work?
It's really wild. I met Joe Madry because he was doing a documentary on an anthology of horror films in America, back from the early silent films all the way to modern. And I didn't know him, but he called my agent and I got to narrate that CD he was putting out. He's a wonderful writer, by the way. And we hit it off. I mean, we talked a lot while I was narrating because I thought some of it should be a little darker and some of it, you know, I mean, we you know, you share the experience. So, and it ended up being really good. And Joe turned out, he said to me, I'm a little embarrassed to tell you this, but I have been a fan for a long time, and would you be interested in doing, you know, biography? And of course, I said, hey man, it's not over yet, you know, I'm not ready to do that. And you also don't get a biography too. So if you decide you're going to do it, it better be good. Otherwise, forget it. It's, you know. So he talked me into it, and our deal was that if we get halfway through the book and it's crap, and I can't be honest, and I'm not really doing it, then we just throw it away and never look back. But halfway through the book, it started writing itself. I'm not kidding you. It started writing itself. And the other good reason is to work with somebody. It's not because I can't write or tell stories. It's that I can't walk to a director that I work with, like, you know, any one of them, and say, Walter Hill, what was it like to work with Lance? I can't do that. It's got to be somebody else, you know. So, and I have a lot of guys that I respect in this business, and I wanted their reflections of working together. because it did back up my opinion of what it was like to work with them. You know, so they're not only talking about me, but I'm able at that point to talk about them. So it was wonderful. It really was a wonderful experience. He's a wonderful writer. We're actually Dark Horse Comics. I went down to Comic-Con, and the president of Dark Horse Comics asked Joe Madre and I to write a comic. And he said, he said, do you want to write a comic? And I said, sure, I got some good stories. Scripts that I've never gotten made, you know, and I've written a lot of them and just put them on a shelf. And now we're doing it. And he said, it's a done deal, like a mobster, you know. It's a done deal. And I went, okay, jeez. My book, by the way, I just want to fill you in on one thing. I didn't want to use publicity shots because I wanted the book to be more accessible. So I got cartoon, you know, comic book artists like Sienkiewicz and Mike Mignola and Tim Bradstreet. There's about 8 of them that did all the illustrations. They found out I was writing the biography and offered it. And I said, sure. And I never told them which movie to make an illustration for. And they all picked different movies, which was great. A miracle, it's a real miracle. So it's a nice looking book. And you can get it on iPad again.
Now, I don't know how many of you guys know this, but Not Bad for a Human was one of the inaugural releases from Steve Niles' new publishing company. And I'm sure many of you know who Steve Niles is, writer of 30 Days of Night, comics genius extraordinaire. How did the book find its way to their imprint?
Steve, I love 30 Days of Nights, by the way. That was that's my favorite. I know that Near Dark, everybody seems to like it, but 30 Days of Nights, the movie, man, I liked that movie. I thought it was amazing. It's just such a beautifully crafted movie. It's just relentless and just about how I imagined it really would be. Even when we were doing Near Dark, I wanted to get a little darker, but you can only go so far, you know, by messing up the narrative of that script. So, but Steve worked with Joe Madre on something for History Channel, and that's where he met Steve Niles. Joe Madre did, and Steve was on the show, and then Joe approached Niles and said, "Look, we have a couple of choices." I took it to an agent for a major publisher, and they said, "Lance, could you talk a little bit more about your divorce in the book?" Like, what? Where did that come from? And I realized I'm not going to be publishing with somebody that's looking for an extravaganza of abuse and neglect and, you know, all this ego crap, you know, anyway, don't get me started. Because I'll launch right from that into politics, you know, you don't want to go there. But Steve was, we had lunch at a little place called Patty's, and talked about it. And he said, I want to be the one that you know that puts out the limited edition, the hardback. And so we did. It was an immediate marriage of ideas. We really wanted it to be that way. So long, fellas. I always feel like I've let people down. That's what But Steve Niles is very creative. He's always got deadlines, and he's always working on the next project, which is he's doing movies now, more movies, and he's writing a lot. And there's a guy named Alex Lodemeyer who was his right-hand man, who lives up in Salt Lake. And I went and saw him too. I drove up to Salt Lake and met with him. And it was just it was really the kind of people I liked to work with and deal with, because they were down to earth, and it was about how we're going to make something accessible to people, you know. And it happened to be my biography, and I was grateful for that. But you know, here we are, and the book is out, and it's doing really well everywhere I've gone so far on this book tour. We've absolutely sold out, and now it's on Amazon Kindle and iPad. So I'm getting sick, man. That's really sick. All right, now can we turn it? Oh,
Yeah, we're absolutely going to turn it over.
can we turn it over to you guys?
I did want to ask, though, before we do, because everyone's got their homework, and their homework is to read your biography.
Yeah.
You're selling it at your table, correct?
Yeah.
And how much is it?
$35.
$35. So, and does that come with an autograph?
Yep.
There you go. You get a book and an autograph for $35.
And
That ain't bad.
I'll write every family member's name in it too.
And at this point, obviously, since Fan Expo is called Fan Expo, and it is all about you guys, the fans, I want to turn the interview over to you. So if you've got a question, raise your hand, and then what I'll do is, just so everyone can hear your question, I'm going to repeat it, and then Lance will answer.
Can before we do that, I never think of, I have a Facebook page, and we have a lot of people on the Facebook page, and we've all come to this conclusion. We're not fans, we're a tribe. That's a whole different deal. That's how I feel about you guys. We are a tribe. We're sharing a lot of similar ideas. So it's cool stuff. Anyway, yeah.
Do you speak Chris Carter? Do you keep contact with the creator?
The question was, do you keep in contact with Chris Carter, the creator of Millennium?
One of the things that's happening right now is our tribe base, fan base, tribe base, whatever, all over the world, they're sending cards and letters to Fox Studios to get the Millennium film made. And there's a website called Back to Frank Black, and we're really working on it. And Chris Carter wants to do it. He doesn't know how it's going to happen, whether it's going to be in theaters or is it going to be a special on either Fox or HBO. We don't know. But so does Frank Spotnitz, who was one of the producers. So that's really in the works, and I'm ready to do it. A lot's happened since 2000. Remember the last thing in the show was that when it flips over, the world's going to end. You know, computers are going to crash. Well, look at all that's happened since 9/11. The world is completely altered, and so there's all the more reason to do something with some dignity and intelligence. So we're really ready to do it. You pick. Yeah, you're the last one I'm picking.
Right. So, it was really interesting to see that you had a part in like Dog Day Afternoon, right? Like I know that was a while back, but when you finished that movie, what did you think was going to be next? What did you think was going to happen next in your career?
He was asking after Dog Day Afternoon, what did I think was going to happen next in terms of a career move or a movie or something. The ironic twist to that is Sidney Lumet was a wonderful man. He passed away not long ago, but he was a true New Yorker in the sense that if I was a New York actor, he embraced young New York actors. I could have shot my whole role in that movie in about 3 days. And he would always turn to a young actor and say, look, you're only on for 3 days, but I'm going to give you run of the show, which means I got paid for 8 weeks or 10 weeks. He wanted to make sure you had an apartment, because I was sleeping on people's couches back in those days. But anyway, before the movie was over, in answer to your question, I had already met with Steven Spielberg, and he offered me Close Encounters to be in it. And I worked on that movie for 6 months, and I'm on screen for a minute and a half. But I learned how to fly, and I made Scale Plus 10, so by the time I got back to New York, I actually got an apartment. That's how we measure our life in dessert spoons.
Red shirt.
Hi, is there an audiobook edition of your book?
Is there an audiobook edition of your book?
Can you imagine me talking about myself on an audio? I don't really have the ego for that one. I really don't. Somebody else's life, oh yeah, I'll give him all kinds of gravitas and meaning and romance and all that. But myself, I'd be like, oh man, this is too much. You look. I should never say never, but no.
All right, there's a question over here at the front. Got you.
Last year on the Back to Break Black website, around Christmas, there was a conversation that was recorded at Christmas time. Your post on this, I was wondering what that is.
What it was like?
Yeah. When, it had been a long time since you had talked.
Yeah, you know, Megan Gallagher, and the biggest surprise was my little girl in that, you know, Brittany Tippett again. She's now 21 and looks the same and is a really bright woman. But I mean, something else happened along those lines. 2 weeks ago, Jim Cameron and Sigourney and Bill Paxton and all of us got together in LA and did a photo shoot for Entertainment Weekly that's going to come out in October. It's the 25th anniversary of Aliens. So that man, it was unbelievable to be in the same room with these guys after not seeing them for a while. And we all felt like we had finished the movie yesterday. It was that kind of feeling, you know, like very friendly, very nice. But in answer to that question, we did a podcast also with Chris Carter and Frank Spotnitz and other people, all discussing what we would see in a Millennium film. So everybody's still in contact. You know, it's I guess there's something resonating about that Millennium show that you know, may make this happen. I wouldn't sit here and lie to you that I'm certain it's going to happen, but I know that all the forces are moving in that direction. That's all I can tell you.
In the green shirt.
Hey, do you have any stories about the movie Stone Cold?
Would you care to share with us a story about the movie Stone Cold?
Stone Cold, Brian Bosworth, he played football for Seattle. Big, huge guy with blonde hair, had a manager, and the manager thought he could create a movie star out of Brian Bosworth, right? So Bosworth gets his script, and he infiltrates this guy named Change's motorcycle club, which is the Brotherhood. And when I met him, one of the things that happened during that movie was every line that I had in the original script was directly out of the Bible. Like this Chains guy spoke Bible talk. And I said to the producer, if I do the first scene with this, from that point on, nobody in that audience is going to listen to me. It's a fait accompli. Thou art a fait accompli, right? I mean, so he said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, we'll improvise every scene. We'll just take all my dialogue and throw it away that's written in that script. We'll stay with the narrative. I'm not going to change the scenes, but I'm not going to say this stuff. And so every morning, Brian Bosworth and I would go to his trailer. He had a giant trailer. I had a little two-banger, they call it. And we would improvise and try to figure out how we're going to talk in these scenes, and for real. And the first scene I did with him is the scene where I meet him, and I said, it just came out of me. I said, you're either going to be the biggest pork chop I ever ate, or my bulldozer. And he said, what? And that was the beginning of it, because I started making up stuff. Once they accepted that, I said, I'm home free, man. I'll just say it. We get to a scene with the governor of the state of Arkansas, and I'm going to shoot him. I've killed everybody in the room already. And I was saving him for last. And I said to him, you know, you remind me of my father's last words. Don't, son, that gun's loaded. I was into a mode of I was into a mode. There's something that happens to me when I get a role and I start living it. I start channeling. I don't know where these words came from. I don't know where I heard them. I don't know. If I was doing a certain role, I would hear people say something in the audience. And if God's going to talk to you, he's going to talk to you through people. That's the only way we're going to understand it. And I don't miss anything. It's like I can channel it all. Now it's my words. So it's pretty cool. I mean, that's a good process. because I'm a primitive. That's the one I need. So that's the one I use, and that's it. But that's the kind of stories. I mean, the whole thing was like that. I built my own motorcycle for it. It was a rigid frame, real outlaw-looking bike, and I had a human heart on it wrapped in barbed wire. And I decided I was afraid I was going to be assassinated, so I got a chainmail vest, stainless steel chainmail vest that you use in a slaughterhouse so you don't get cut. And I wore that all the time. And down in Louisiana and Alabama, where we were shooting, the sun was so hot it made me sweat, and the sweat would mix with the releasing another one. It would mix with it, and I was like a battery, you know, the alkaline or whatever it is, and I was constantly going zapping. It was great fun. I really loved doing it. I loved playing that character. At the end, I never wanted to see another motorcycle as long as I lived. That's how bad it got. We had a. Oh, you didn't go. That was sneaky, man. Or did I pull you back? Something I said? We had a big funeral for one of my sergeant at arms of the club, and we asked for extras with motorcycles, and we had Sons of Silence, Banditos, all these outlaw clubs came. And at one scene, after he's set on fire, I put a cigar in his mouth and set him on fire like the Vikings. And after that, we were supposed to pull out our blank guns and shoot him in the air. Well, all these outlaw bikers pulled out real guns, shoot him in the air. Everything I do in a movie is like an adventure, and if the unexpected happens, I guarantee you, constantly, and it's a great thing. But I'm not getting arrested for it. I can wheel a car, I can jump off a building, I can jump through a wheel, you know, whatever I want to do. And if it fits there, I'm not going to get busted for it. So that's a nice feeling. Get to express, you know. Okay, that's that story. That covers Stone Cold a little bit.
Oh, I've just gotten a note to remind everyone here that we are screening Near Dark at the Toronto Underground Theatre tonight at 9 p.m. So this ends at 8, so you've got a whole hour to make your way over there. And Lance Henriksen will be in attendance in the screening, and he will be doing another Q&A after that screening.
But about that movie, I got lots of stories about that movie. Good stuff.
So if your question doesn't get answered here during this panel, there's a chance to have it answered later this evening after the Near Dark screening. Red shirt.
Oh, wait, this guy is so really right.
Okay.
Richard, all right?
All right, gray shirt.
Hopefully I'm not covering something from last year. I had a millennium question. My favorite episode was the Golden Free went to the coffee shop, the
Devils, yeah.
full story. I was curious what one of your favorite episodes or memories from Millennium was.
You know what? There was a simple thing in that, right? The Devils could be sitting there having coffee, and if a human looked at them, they would just see three old men, right, eating donuts. But then there was a kind of other perception where us as an audience watching that show saw the Devils. But within the show, nobody could tell. But Frank Black, for some reason, they had me able to look at the guy and go, I saw exactly what it was. So they did a whole show to describe a very simple concept. That this guy, they were trying many, many ways to express Frank Black and his abilities. Were both spiritual, they were like a chess player. I never liked the idea that he was a what do you call it? Like a psychic. I never saw it that way. But they were trying to find many, many ways of describing how he viewed life. And I was always amazed at the writers because they could really come up with this stuff. Remember the little toy sitting, a bobblehead with the devil sitting there after they left? That was cool. I mean, I really liked it. I liked that show. I liked a lot of them.
Red shirt.
Did I get it? That was good.
Out of all the roles you play, what is your favorite one?
Out of all the roles you've played, what is your favorite one?
That is the hardest question in the world. It really is. It's, you know how I get out of it always? I go, they say, what is your favorite movie that you've done? And I always go, the last one. But there are some roles, like I love doing westerns. I've done about 5 of them. And they all, I have a philosophy on what makes westerns good or bad. If a guy is playing a cowboy, it doesn't work. He has to have a life, and he also happens to be in that era. You know what I mean? So there's always the practical life, you know. And so that makes one good if you're doing that. Like I don't know if you saw Appaloosa, but Ed Harris and Viggo Mortensen were a couple of town tamers, which they had back in those days. And you had to work in twos, because otherwise you would tame the town, and then the town would kill you, so they'd have to pay you. So you always had somebody at your back. And the ironic twist of that story was that him and I, the character Cole that he was playing, and I had tamed towns together. We had tamed towns together, and that was our past. So all through the movie, Ed was directing the movie, Ed Harris was directing the movie in character. It wasn't like he would drop the Cole character, who was a killer, and then direct. He would always be directing. 16 and 17 is leaving. But anyway, to make it short, he would always be saying to me, "Are you telling me you'd shoot it out with me for this guy?" And I said, "He owes me money." "Yes, I would. I'm not afraid to die. You want to do it right here, right now? That's good. Okay, let's go." And he would go, "There's a time and place for everything." You know, it was like that kind of thing. So we'd improvise all constantly. So westerns are great if you're working with people that are willing to work that way. You know, so it's all about the fundamental practical stuff. When I did Quick and the Dead, I realized, do you see how I was dressed in that, Ace Hanlon, with all that fancy embroidery and stuff, with the guns? I did right on the guns, you did. that I thought, if this guy was sitting in the desert by a campfire drinking coffee, and 4 guys rode up and saw him dressed like that, he better be able to like stand up for it, stand up for himself, or he'll take everything he's got. And so I always approach westerns as being part of the natural difficulty of living in that era, you know. And so I wasn't ever playing a cowboy; I was playing a survivor in a lot of ways. Yeah.
That kind of leads to my question. In that Scale movie, Reg, when you were doing Quick and the Dead, were you actually on location there at the recollection of working with Sam Raimi on that? What was the first part? Working at that Scale movie, Reg, in Arizona, were you actually on location filming there, or was it all you were at that Scale? Any colorful recollections on working with Sam?
Yeah, you know, Sam didn't know what I was going to do with the role. He offered it to me as a cameo, and he said, "Come up and play Ace Hanlon." And I got extensions put in my hair and had long black hair. I had my hair dark black, and I had to put a mustache with a thing. And he hadn't seen me. I was coming up to shoot, but he hadn't seen me since the last time he saw me, which I didn't look anything like that. And then I also I knew the guy was flamboyant, you know, he was like a showman. And I had a buddy named Rex Rossi, and I worked on this trick of flipping off the horse backwards and shooting under the belly of the horse. That wasn't in the script at all. It was just that I shot the card out of the girls, you know, through the ace. And when I saw Sam, I came up and we did the stage. We had a reading with Gene Hackman, and everybody was there. And I said, Sam, on the first day of shooting, I came out and I said, "Sam, I want to show you something." And I had the stunt guys bring out this big white horse. And I said, this is what I'd like to do, you know. And so I got on a horse and I did flip and shot under the belly. And he was like a kid. He was like, "Oh, that's in the movie. That's in the movie." And he did. He went to great lengths to shoot it. I mean, you know. But that Sam was a great guy, man. And was the first movie he had where he had every kind of camera and lens and piece of equipment. So he was super happy. And the one other thing that happened was Sharon Stone. I came out of my trailer in the morning, and she came out of her trailer without an ounce of makeup on. And I went, I must have shown it, but my jaw dropped. I just went, oh. And she went, Lance, it's only my spacesuit. My spacesuit. I said, can I borrow it?
All right, I got a working microphone again, and we have a blue shirt on the far right.
I'm going to be making a short film in a couple weeks, and I've never directed anything. Do you have any advice about how I should treat my actors?
Any advice about how to treat actors on a short film shoot?
Okay, I got a good analogy. If you make a film in China and you're Chinese, they have a mattress for the women and a mattress for the men. And when you're not shooting, you sit on those mattresses. Sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? But that's the way it's been done there for a long, long time. Paul Anderson, the guy I did Alien vs. Predator with, told me this story because he was going to go there and shoot. And he said to the producer, the Chinese producer, I don't think Americans are going to put up with that shit. And I would just treat him with the same dignity you treat yourself. I mean, we're all just people. There are no stars. We're just all there to do a really wonderful job and help each other, right? And that's the way to treat them. There's no other way. I mean, if you fall in love with your leading lady, you're in big trouble. You are, because she's going to want all the close-ups, and then she's going to walk away from you at the end and not look back. That's my only piece of advice.
All right, there's a question in the middle there. You, yes. What is your most physically demanding role?
You know, the first year of Millennium, I did all my own stunts. The whole first year. And by the end of the season, I had so many bruises on me, and my knees were hurting, my elbows were hurting, and everything was hurting. And I decided, I'm not doing those kind of stunts anymore. I'll do some of them, you know, just the simple stuff. But diving over the hoods of cars and rolling in the street, I didn't want to do anymore. Because I got too beat up. I really did. Guys make you look good. Stuntmen make you look good. But they don't have to do 10 and a half months, right? They just come in and make you look good, and then they go. And go rest. But, let's see, most demanding. Intellectually or physically? Working with John Woo wasn't easy, because he set me on fire, he had me doing all kinds of stuff. And I love him, yeah. What?
Piranha 2, right? Piranha 2.
No, I heard you. I was trying to forget that movie. I asked the producers of Piranha 2 to bring me down to Jamaica, and this was our budget was $300,000, Jim Cameron's first movie. And I said, bring me down to Jamaica because I know I'm in a boat a lot, and I've never driven a boat. So bring me down, come on. They never did. So I get down there, and the first shot of the first scene that I'm in, it's in a speedboat. And this big black Jamaican guy, this really huge guy, he owned the boat. And I said, Jim, if I put this boat up on that pier, you're going to stand between me and this guy, right? This is his only, you know, this is the only way he makes a living. I mean, and he said, don't worry. That's all. Okay. So then the scene, I drove out, did a big loop, came running in, tried to stop it, couldn't, went right up on the pier. I swear to you, man. I was so embarrassed. And this guy was looking at me like he was going, oh, Mom! You know, he was like, really pissed. And we had to do another take. And Jim said, I'll give you whatever it costs, and the bottom of the boat's scraped, and you know, I mean, it didn't hit the engine, luckily. So I went out and did it again, but this time I kind of puttered in. And I was so nervous that my acting in that scene was really crap. I was so nervous. I mean, we were throwing, I caught a guy throwing dynamite, fishing with dynamite. And then he says, nice boat. And I said, what is that? And he says, it's my boat. I said, you call it a boat, man? You know, great dialogue. But anyhow, I was terrible in that scene. It got better as it went along.
I've been told we have about 5 more minutes because we need to let Lance get ready for his next engagement. So 1 or 2 more questions. Bandana. What was it like returning to the Alien franchise after 12 years?
I bought another house. You know what? The first movie I did, the first Aliens I did, I think I made, I don't know, I think 20,000. You know, I was in England for 4 months, and the first, God, I don't know why I'm talking about this, but the first residual that came in was for like 3 times what I got paid for it. It was such a hit, you know. I mean, and they're still coming in to this day. Every time they put out a Blu-ray, another check flies in, you know. And I got one kid's in private school, so it goes right to that. Anyway, what was the question? I got carried away.
What was it like after 12 years?
What was it like to go back and revisit those roles? I always felt when I got another script for that Bishop, that the writers got writer's block in the middle of the night, like 4 in the morning, and they went, you know what are we going to do with this scene? I don't know. Oh, I got it. Bishop. Just arbitrarily put him in there. You know, this time he's cut in half, he's ripped apart, and he does this long speech about, just turn me off. And the writer goes, what a great idea. What do you think, Walter? Walter is one of the producers, and oh man. Walter said to me, he went, go to England, have a cup of coffee and a donut, and come home. That's the way he described the role. Bishop 1 and Bishop 2 for the third one. And what he didn't know was they flew me back and forth 4 trips in 1 month. I was so jet lagged, I didn't even know my own name. It was just really too much. But, you know, it'll never go away, man.
Before I pick one last question, I was asked to ask you, and I'm not sure if you're going to know the answer to this. There's this very mysterious thing on the Saturday science fiction schedule that's called Lance versus Lance, featuring Lance Henriksen. And someone in the audience was curious as to what that might be.
Who was the person in the audience that was curious about that? Maybe they have more information than I do. What do you think it is? I honestly don't know what it is, except that there's some guy that's going to be quizzing me, asking me questions about my career that I can't answer. And I know he's going to set me up. You know, what was the name of the girl, you know, and I'm going to tell him that I actually had a motorcycle accident about a month ago, and my head hit the curb, so my memory is gone. I'll just start off that way and then try to weasel my way through the rest. Can you imagine? I mean, let me ask you something. When you graduated from high school and you went to the prom, right? What color was the dress the girl was wearing? I rest my case. This ain't gonna happen. Lance versus Lance. That's like looking in the mirror saying, God, you look good today. Really? Yeah, you look a little tired, you know, but what else? It would just dry up. Me talking about my life because you asked a question is possible. But for someone to ask me about, you know, stuff that I don't know about, what am I going to do? I'm going to look like a loser, that's it. That's what he wants. That's humor. Right? Are you ready for this one?
Why don't you pick our very last question for the evening?
There you go.
Easy. I enjoyed your voice work on the Call of Duty game. How does voice acting compare to screen acting, and do you see yourself doing more of it?
How does voice acting compare to straight acting, and do you see yourself doing more of it?
This is a good last question. I'm going to bore you to death with this one. Those guys, when they come and ask me to do something like Call of Duty or Mass Effect 3, which I just finished, and a lot of them, you know, I've done a lot of those games. guess they like what I do with them, but they have worked on it for years before I ever walk into the room. And all I can do is try my best to keep it in the moment, alive, and service the material. But I don't suddenly come up and say, what if I said this? You can't. I mean, it's years in the making. Call of Duty, I really enjoyed because they showed me a lot of stuff that they'd already put together, and it's always with one of the producers who has a terrible voice, you know, doing the lines that I'm going to do, and I go, oh, that doesn't sound so good, man. And, you know, I mean, how am I going to, you know, and I realize it's the producer, and I try to hedge out of it, and I go, oh, I see, that's just a guide track. I got it, okay. And then I'm free, you know, but I have to give it its hard work that it requires. I love doing them. Guys, you've been patient and wonderful and good questions, and you probably never realized anybody could talk this particular much, you know. But thank you very much.
And before you all head out, if anyone is interested in attending the Near Dark screening tonight in 1 hour at the Toronto